the puppies were presented to us in a very fragile state. So when the pet was presented to us, it had collapsed within few seconds of arriving at the clinic.
Oh God.
And he himself, being a doctor, was not ready to accept the fact that, it was his fault. Hi guys, welcome to the 4th episode of Pupcast. Today we have someone really special, someone who actually is a true hero, putting herself out there every day on the field to make the lives of our furry friends better. We have Dr. Preeti, who heads the Aund Clinic of Crown Vet. She's here with us. Welcome, Preeti. How was your trip from Pune?
Pretty comfortable.
Yeah? So we're going to jump right into the questions. Tell me how you ended up choosing this professional field. So I was pretty much fixed upon the idea of getting into veterinary from a very quite beginning. Probably when I was in my 7th or 8th standard, when my dad was posted in a very remote location.
Okay.
That was the time when I had my first pet. And I came across this very field wherein I got to know that, okay, we do have, doctors available for animals as well. So that was kind of very fascinating for me. And that's where my journey started, wherein I started telling my parents that, okay, I'm going to be probably a doctor. And that's when I didn't knew that it's called as a veterinary doctor and stuff like that. And as I moved along with my career, I got this opportunity to, my dad being posted in Bangalore, and we had our veterinary university right there. So I was lucky enough to get into one, and that was the vision. I always thought of getting into veterinary, and that's how I landed up studying for veterinary.
So you always had animals since you were young. Any particular incidents that kind of nudged you to really take care of them eventually in the future?
Well, I'm from hills, so I've always been around greenery and animals, and so that's how. My first pet was when I was in my 7th standard, like I said.
Wow.
And there was this one Fauji who just got in one pet who was posted in Jammu, and he just picked up one pup from there and he just gifted that to us. So that was my first association wherein I, immersed myself into the service of animal husbandry.
Nice. When you were choosing this as a profession, any hesitation from parents? Because, everyone wants their kids to be a doctor, but then vets, it's still an emerging field, as you said.
Yes, my parents have always been very supportive from the very start. My dad was like, whatever you're passionate about, just chase it. So he always knew that I loved animals, and he was actually more than happy. And he was the one who did all the research and got me into the veterinary school. And they've always been very supportive until date.
Now, coming back to the patients you deal with, right? There is a very big difference from humans, I feel, because pets cannot really express the pain they're feeling, the discomfort. So how difficult is it to actually deal with patients like that?
So when we are talking about any patient walking in with their pet parents, we basically sit down, give our 20 minutes or 15 minutes of our time, collecting the history. We try and, nudge around things, trying to figure out how we have a proper SOPs or a protocol which we follow in regards to collecting a history.
Yeah.
In our field, I think history collection is very important. We need to really nudge around areas, thinking that where we can catch something which probably can correlate to the clinical symptoms.
Correct.
So it's all about, how you interact, how comfortable environment you give to a pet parent, wherein they can open up and discuss what difficulties they are facing. And then, yes, of course, after we finish up with our introductory section where we probably take our history, we take the pet to a prep room, and we probably do a head-to-toe examination, and we probably check every in and out corner, and we try to figure out, okay, this is the area which we need to target based on our physical examination. And that's how we discuss the same with the pet parents, and we try to limit our diagnosis to that particular area. However, we keep our differentials in hand, but we definitely have to rely upon what history has been collected to per se with whatever clinical symptoms the pet is displaying or the physical discomfort the pet is showing. So yes, it's a difficult job wherein you are trying to spend your first 15 to 20 minutes scrutinizing the entire pet and the pet parent's history to understand where exactly we need to focus upon. And yes, diagnosis has been a very important tool for us to understand where we really need to focus our interest in.
Any particular incident where you can recall, maybe you were emotionally, almost ready to give up, but I think the pets really have a will to fight, which is beyond our understanding. Any incident you can talk about?
Well, I can talk about one particular case where, I had a Siberian Husky, which was presented to us probably 4 months old with a very stiff posture. we were trying to collect the history from last 24 hours with the pet parent, and the pet parent was not able to really provide us with a complete history, and the pet was partially responding to our treatment. However, all the diagnosis done, everything done, we were not really able to figure out what exactly was happening with the pet. And that pet was so, strong enough to fight through those 24 hours. And that's when later the pet parent came back to us saying that, okay, I found this at home, which I didn't see until today. And that was when we cracked the case. And the pet held on till that time with the supportive care. And we were able to, send him back home happy running around. So, yeah, definitely. I mean, pets have any animals in particular, if you're talking about, are very strong creatures, they hold upon, they have that fighting spirit. And I think they deserve that equal opportunity from our end also to fight and to get them up and running.
I think you all are doing a great way of dealing with it. You have the right treatments in place, the right procedures in place. And I think you take your due time to really get into what is really wrong with a particular patient. How easy or difficult is it to deal with the pet parents, and how easy or difficult is it to explain it to them? And are they supportive of the whole thing?
Well, you do see a different category of people when you're dealing as a pet parent, I mean, I can't blame them as well, because everybody comes with a very different state of mind when they are presented to us. Some people are very emotionally weak. Some people are very emotionally strong, I would also say. So every person we are dealing with is entirely different. And I think based on how the pet parent is, we generally tend to, strategize our common points where we can talk and, come to a conclusion where we can mutually understand each other and go further with the treatment. So at the end of the day, it's how you are treating their pet. It's at the end of the day how well the pet is responding to the treatment. And at the end of the day, it's the betterment of the pet we are looking into.
True.
So definitely we find a common grounds between each other, wherein even if we have a conflicting client is really resistant in understanding anything, or is really not very supportive of the treatment or the communication going on, at the end of the day, I think they also understand that, okay, it's for the betterment of the pet, and we try to work our common grounds through it.
You can recall any time when you really had a conflicting, difficult parent?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we deal with difficult parents. We have had pet parents those who have been very, I would say abusive, I would say very vocal, I would say very loud, very annoyed of the things. But yeah, I mean, if you're asking an incident.
Yes, we want to know one incident.
So, okay. So there was this guy, I remember on the top of my head, he was in forces. He wasn't from the medical crops. So basically he was in forces, I think a doctor in military. So what basically happened was that he was, I think, taking care of few stray pets at home, and one among them became pregnant and had littered few puppies. The puppies, which they may be around 2 months old, were not vaccinated. I think as a doctor, he himself should be having a basic knowledge about how he needs to, take care of the puppies and, vaccinate them in time. However, what happened was that the puppies were presented to us in a very fragile state So when the pet was presented to us, it had collapsed within few seconds of arriving at the clinic.
Oh, God.
And he himself, being a doctor, was not ready to accept the fact that, it was his fault. I would say how it was his fault is first of all, educating himself, being a doctor itself, understanding what the medical facilities are available first.
True.
Second, taking things on his own hand, wherein he was treating the puppies by himself without any veterinary supervision at home from last couple of days.
Yeah.
And he brought in a pet at a very fragile state where we could not get even few seconds to help the puppy. So that I didn't understand why he was so rageful about that incident, because he was expecting us to do something in those few minutes, which obviously we were not able to because we didn't get an opportunity to.
Yeah.
And he was just not ready to leave the clinic. He was, when you are presented with a case, you try to do some kind of a CPR, some kind of a life-saving procedure for that puppy. And definitely you are spending your few minutes with the puppy. You are spending your resources, your medications on the puppy. Obviously, there will be a basic charge which has to come along with it.
Yeah.
And he was so resistant on paying a very minimum cost of probably consuming our time. And he just made a ruckus of all situation. And it was kind of very difficult. And he, being from forces, would, come back to us saying that, you don't know who I am and stuff like that. And even I was in medical profession, and how can you charge me and stuff like that. So that kind of became a very disturbing episode for all of us, and also for the vet who was actually taking care of that case. And it kind of became a very difficult situation for us to handle that man and calm him down. Ultimately, we did. We supported each other and we did. But
And this is him after being a doctor.
this is him after being into medical profession for a lot of time.
So now being a vet and dealing with another doctor, do you think there's a big difference in how society, how people treat vets and doctors differently?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would not suggest in metropolitan cities you at least have an education now in terms of people have more awareness about what veterinary as a field is. People know what's going about. But if you're talking about tier 2, tier 3 cities, I think the awareness is what is lacking. People don't know what services are being offered and how well the veterinary field is emerging. So I think awareness part per se, yes, people do look at you and say that, okay, you're in veterinary, okay, you're not in MBBS. But then I think things are changing now. I mean, at least the tier 1 cities are understanding the importance of veterinary, and India is still an emerging field, and I think in the next 3 to 4 years, it's still be emerging. It has a lot of scope.
Yeah, it has a lot of scope. Let's talk about mental health of vets, your fellow. Let's talk about mental health for vets today. How important is it?
Mental health in general is very important. Yes, you are talking about being in a medical profession wherein you are dealing with a lot of people in and out every single day. You're dealing with a lot of emotional trauma around you. So definitely mental health is very important. There are a few basic things which I think every medical professional or veterinarians go through are basic things like burnouts, compassion fatigue, emotional trauma, I would say overusage of your emotional status by pet parents. So these are a few common things I would suggest are quite disturbing, and it kind of gives you a lot of baggage and troubles your mental health.
So when you're dealing with something like that, where is your support system? Who do you go to?
Well, for me, I've been very grateful that I've had a very good family who has been very supportive to me. And I physically work out. So that is kind of one criteria of mine wherein I take out all my frustration and try to keep myself healthy mentally and soulfully. So I think.
And your workplace, your fellow colleagues, do they also provide that kind of support to you?
Absolutely.
Each other.
At least in GroundVet, we have created an environment where we talk to each other, we support each other, we try to stand up for each other, we discuss on day to day. And at least in my clinic, I've made a ritual wherein in the entire day, once at least for a few minutes, we all are going to sit together, probably for lunch or probably for a tea, wherein we sit together, we discuss things, we talk to each other, we discuss our discomforts. That is something which I practice on day to day, where I get to know if someone is stressed about a situation where we can handle it or we can talk about it. So that's what I practice, and I think every clinic should practice this, wherein they are sitting all together, talking to each other, supporting each other, standing for each other. I think that's what I generally do. And when I need a support, I definitely have my staff standing behind me, and I do the same for them.
That's awesome. Okay, one very important question which I wanted to bring up was, what are your ideas on euthanasia?
Euthanasia in itself is a very sensitive topic.
It is
something which comes with a lot of baggage, wherein you are in a mid of a situation where you are handling things professionally, where you have to have your straight head, wherein you have to accept the decision taken by a pet parent, professionally follow it, and the other side where you are emotionally drained doing the same, and also dealing with an emotional parent who is way too emotionally drained out at that moment. So I would suggest that, I can just term it as something which is very sad, and it kind of emotionally drains you out, and that is something which you definitely carry throughout the day and take it back home.
And when is that point where you end up suggesting this decision?
So we generally advise euthanasia to the pets, those who are in a very fragile state where there is no treatment possible, or if the pet is in a very old age disease, wherein we have where there is more of suffering, which we are talking about. We are not talking about any medical management which can be provided, or a medical support which can be provided to the pet, and the pet is in complete lateral decumbency, where there is nothing else which can be done, or an illness wherein there is no treatment. and the pet is into a suffering stage, that's where we suggest euthanasia to a pet parent.
It must be really hard.
It is, definitely it is. It is completely, I would just suggest it as an emotionally draining decision, which I think a pet parent or a veterinarian both go through.
How does your a regular day at the clinic look like? How many patients do you deal with on a daily basis?
So, we are talking about OPD cases which come in and go out.
Yeah.
So, if we are talking about, so my day basically starts in coming into the clinic, taking the handovers from my night vet. Those whatever cases they have seen throughout the night or the cases which are admitted, they will hand over the cases to me. They will give us a plan what they have done in the night and how they have supported the pet parent, or what kind of a communication has occurred between a pet parent, how the status of the pet is.
Yeah.
And that's when we take over the cases. We take over first as the day starts. We take care of the IPD cases which are already admitted with us for 24/7. And most that we start with our OPD cases, wherein in between we keep juggling between our OPD and IPD cases. We have few vets, those who are restricted to the IPD areas, which are taking care and monitoring constantly the inpatient admitted with us. But yes, that's how it looks like. Your operative procedures, your daily in and out patients, your IPDs, discussions with the vets, case histories being taken, discussion again with the junior vets, trying to understand where they can add few things, running our diagnostics. That's how my day completely looks like. I mean,
What else do you end up doing?
I mean, that's all. I mean, the day just flies by. I mean, there are a lot of inpatient and OPD again and again running down, and so that's how we complete it.
And roughly how many patients do you see in a day?
I would
Give a number.
I mean, as low as say 20 and as high as 30 cases.
Wow.
Talking about during my period of OPD consult.
You definitely need to work out after that to just calm your system down. That's amazing.
You have a very mixed feeling when you go back home.
Yeah, true. Okay, that's amazing. Thank you for joining us today all the way from Pune again. One message you have for your fellow colleagues, all the vets out there?
The only message I think I want to give to my fellow veterinarians or the emerging vets are to always be focused, be very humble, and be always open to the idea of learning and be at any stage of your career.
And any message for all your pet parents out there?
So for the pet parents, I would just say that trust the vet you're going to. Asking questions is your right, but always make sure that you're trusting your vet and giving them enough space to work through, help your pets.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.